From the Arizona Daily Star and Tucson.com, this is the Wildcast.
You're listening to the Wildcast podcast. I'm your host, Justin Spears, here with Michael Lev and Brett Farah. Normally, we preview an upcoming game that Arizona's playing in, but Arizona, they're not playing in a game. Well, they are, but it's to be determined whenever that is. We expect it to be the Alamo Bowl against maybe Oklahoma, maybe a future Big 12 opponent. But those bowl games will be all unveiled on Sunday. But we're going to change things up a little bit different. Or we're going to change things up. We're going to do awards. Now that Arizona is in the postseason, they finished the regular season 9-3. We're going to look back on the 12 games that Arizona played and look at some notable performers. And we're going to crown offensive MVP, defensive MVP.
We're going to crown them? We're going to crown them.
Or award them.
I'm just making
Little Dennis Green.
Little Dennis Green.
You're going to crown him?
Do you guys know I was there?
You're going to crown him?
I was there that day. I was in the room.
Did you let him off the hook?
They are who we thought they are?
Yeah.
They let him off the
hook? That was a Monday night game.
Did you let him off the hook?
Against the Bears. Did I let Dennis Green off the hook? I don't really remember what I wrote, but I remember being
there.
about 10 feet away. Yeah. How about that?
Wow. Did you know at that moment that it was going to be the most viral clip ever?
I kind of had a feeling.
Did we know what viral was yet at that point? Like, when was
God,
this?
you're making me feel old. When was that? I would say that was 2005.
Yeah.
Yeah,
is that accurate? Yeah, because the Bears went to the Super Bowl that
Twitter
year.
Twitter didn't exist yet, so like
MySpace.
The Bears went to the Super Bowl.
Facebook had about 100,000 users.
Yeah.
Rex Grossman is our quarterback. You know, that was that team.
Wow.
They went to the Super Bowl, right? That's what the coach would. That's what Lovie Smith would always say. People were questioning.
I thought you, because from Chicago and all. I thought you were.
People were always questioning, like, you know, should Rex still be the starter? And he would always say, Rex Grossman is our quarterback. And they went to the Super Bowl that year and lost to the Colts.
Sounds like the first few weeks of the Arizona season in Jane DeLora.
Man.
It's so weird how that feels like years ago, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, not to segue that, but like, it still feels like years ago that Jane DeLora gets hurt at Stanford, and nope, he's our starter. He's our guy.
2006 was the year, not 2005. I was close.
Before we start crowning some people, want to remind people that we are on all podcast platforms, so please subscribe, rate, and comment today. If you're an Apple Podcast user, give us a 5-star rating and leave a comment. Drop those. Those always improve our, presence on these platforms. So if you can leave a comment, please do so. Then also check us out on Spotify and download the Wildcaster mobile app for free off the App Store and Google Play. I saw that Arizona basketball is going to the Bad Boy Mowers Battle for Atlantis.
Don't do it. Did you see all... actually, the story will probably run in the paper on Friday, so depending when this comes out. But the Pac-12 teams are terrible in Atlantis, including Arizona. What was that, 4 years ago?
With DeAndre Ayton?
Yeah.
It went over.
Pac-12 is terrible. Stanford just got blown out of the water there.
But the field... Brett.
The field looks...
You got Gonzaga.
Yeah,
it could be the first time that Tommy Lloyd and Mark Few face off against each other since Tommy went to Arizona. And then I noticed that West Virginia is also on there, too. So is it possible that Arizona plays against Kirk Risa?
Does he have that much time left?
Well, I mean, who knows? DJ Uiagalelei is in the transfer portal. Who knows about eligibility nowadays in college athletics?
There's always some extra thing. But for whatever reason, though, Pac-12 teams do not hold their own in the battle for Atlantis.
So we're going to have a little mini mailbag
this
we're episode, and we will have one Pac-12 pick of the Pac-12 championship game, and then special announcement, we are going to extend Pac-12 pick'ems through bowl season. We just can't let it go. We don't want Pac-12 football to end. And the race.
No, they don't want me to win because I am like my predecessor Ryan Finley, who would pick teams based on the color of their helmets. And I mean, that
might also be a little
knows more
true.
about football than I'm giving him credit for. But in terms of paying attention to all the nuances each week, these two are the experts. And somehow magically I'm in the lead by a game. So that's the real reason.
There might be some truth to that. But anyway, to the awards. What do we call them the awards, Justin?
I guess we'll call them the Wildcasties. I don't know if
Just
that's
rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
I don't know if that's the right word or title that we should give these awards, but we'll call them the Wildcasties for now. So the Wildcasties, we have several categories. We got offensive MVP, defensive MVP, most improved defensive player, most improved offensive player, top newcomer, breakout player, and assistant coach of the year. A lot of awards to give out. But let's first start off with offensive MVP. You could go a number of ways, but when you look at the most consistent player from game 1 to game 12 going into the postseason, I think you got to give it up to Teta Aroa McMillan, a.k.a. T-Mac, who is the gifted multi-sport athlete who's now in his second year at Arizona. And, last year as a true freshman, we saw T-Mac make some impressive catches, the one-handed grabs that he was able to make, jumping up, high-pointing balls. You could see why he was one of the top wide receivers coming out of high school. But then this year, he's added to his arsenal. He's running after the catch. He's making guys miss him, right? He's, shedding tacklers, and he's a very physical wide receiver. He's won a lot of great one-on-one battles with some pretty solid defensive backs. I go back to that game against Colorado, watching him and Travis Hunter go up against each other. That was a pretty special matchup, and T-Mac made some great plays in that game. And then when you look at the numbers that he's been putting up this year, right now he's got the 4th most receiving yards by an Arizona Wildcat in a single season. And for him to stamp this year or the regular season with an 11-catch, 266-yard performance, the dude's a first-round talent. And I went back and I rewatched the ASU game, and it was interesting to hear Louis Riddick. It seemed like every chance he got, Louis Riddick was just complimenting T-Mac. So T-Mac, to me, offensive MVP. Who's your guys' pick?
So what I'm going to do here, I think, is if I agree with you, I will just say that I agree with you, but I'll give you like a second choice, right? So that we have something else to talk about. I do agree. I think T-Mac is the guy. Noah Fafita obviously had a great season, didn't play the whole year. I think my second choice might be Jordan Morgan. Just absolutely outstanding year at left tackle, one of the top-rated pass blockers in the country, very effective on those screen passes where, he has to run 15, 20 yards and get out in front of a wide receiver. Did that as well or better than anybody. And, there weren't a lot of games this year where you felt like the quarterback was under siege, right? Yeah. And that all starts with your left tackle. So I agree with you on T-Mac, and Jordan Morgan will be my runner-up or my honorable mention for that.
I think I use, I don't know which league, I know all of them kind of do this, but which major professional sports league kind of coined the idea that the MVP, we have to remember most valuable, not best. And it's kind of wild to think that, a season after, and this is not a knock on Jaden DeLora, but a season after Jaden DeLora, really turned the corner with this team or helped this team turn the corner, that I'm going to go with Noah Fafita as the MVP because of what the team did after he was inserted into the lineup. I think to evolve as a team the last 8 games of this year the way they did, that loss to Mississippi State doesn't look great anymore. It was good when it happened. It was a close loss. It was overtime. But
if anything, it makes Mississippi State look good.
Correct. It's not the other way around.
That's their best win.
There's been so much talk in the college football playoff discussion this week by the people in the playoff committee about good losses more than even good wins, and yet that's not really a great loss for Arizona at this point in the year. And so getting past that and getting past the point of him starting and him really losing his first 2 starts as well, playing well but losing his first 2 starts against Washington and USC. If I have the order of the season right, I'm not looking at his schedule.
He did.
So
it's true.
So I look to the transparency component is I think that the 2 guys you mentioned are entirely at the top of the list. But I think if we're looking at from trying to be different and pull a Michael Lev and try and go against the grain here a little bit, I think you could make a case for Fafita just because the team turned a corner when he entered the lineup and he put up insane numbers. You extrapolate those over 12 games and he is legitimately in the Heisman talk over 12 games.
No doubt.
And maybe he's not winning it, but he's in the conversation. And so that's my call.
No,
Yeah, all right.
Defensive MVP, I'm going to crown Jacob Manu. This kind of seems like low-hanging fruit here, but he's got well over 100 tackles the first time that's happened by a Wildcat since Colin Schooler in 2018. He could lead, after bowl games and all that, he could lead the Pac-12 in tackles, which hasn't been done by a Wildcat since Scooby Wright in 2014, when Scooby was an All-American, won several national awards as a defensive player. So Jacob Manu, what a great season in year 2. And it's crazy to think that just, at this point last year, he was an up-and-coming player. Like, he didn't really become a household name, if you will, until the second half of the season when he was making impactful plays in big games. And now he's the ringleader of a side of the ball that went from the 6th worst in college football to a top 30 defense. And we always talked about all year long Johnny Nansen changing up the defense, throwing in the dollar package, throwing in the Joker defense, or adding Martell Irby to one of the other linebacker spots. All the different looks that were thrown out this year by Arizona, there was one constant, and there was the guy in the middle, and that was Jacob Manu. So he's my MVP.
Yeah, I just don't know where they would be without Jacob Manu. Like, you look at any number of other positions, and they have good depth, and you can sort of say this guy could be an alternative. If so-and-so went down, they could put this guy there. I don't know who they would have played at that weak side linebacker spot if Manu had gotten hurt. They tried a bunch of different guys at the other linebacker position. It was kind of a revolving door over there. He's the constant. He's the most consistent for sure. So I agree with you. That would be my choice. My runner-up, I think I'm going to go with Takario Davis. Takario had a tremendous season. If you look at missed tackle percentage with a minimum of 25 tackle attempts, best on the team. Okay. If you look at completion percentage against, which obviously very important for a cornerback, right? Takario Davis, best on the team, 45.3% completion percentage when thrown in his direction. PFF also has a stat that they call forced incompletions, 16 among the tops in the nation.
Wow.
So Takario had a great season. If he had just been able to catch the ball a little bit better, we might be talking about an All-American here, but he dropped 4 or 5 interceptions.
It's the old adage, he'd be a wide receiver.
Maybe he'd be a wide receiver, yes. This is why he's a defensive back. But this is why he's my second choice for that award.
Not to get sidetracked, but what is what was the thing from PFF about
forced incompletions?
Forced incompletions. What is included in that? Because on the regular base statistics, he has 15 pass breakups. So what's the other thing? What do you think? What do you think they use for that? Just out of curiosity. I don't know.
I think they do a judgment.
Yeah.
Did this player influence the pass to cause it to be incomplete in whatever form or fashion?
So you could even give that to a lineman who hits a quarterback's arm or something, and the ball flails away, maybe, or something like that.
Or maybe it actually hits the receiver's hands. Like it's
Not
actually
but he was so close and caused so much disturbance.
Yeah,
on
there
the
are
line.
no.
He actually caused the incompletion.
There are no defensive linemen who have a forced incompletion on Arizona, so it is something more along those lines. You can get a pass breakup without it being. There's no telling whether it'd be an incomplete, a complete pass, right?
That's true.
Like a D lineman
That's a
batting
great
the
point.
ball. So I think that's kind of what it is. Anyway,
Do you guys know what the law of parsimony is? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but
no, I don't.
it's another way to talk about Occam's razor. Occam's razor, basically, the everyday thought behind Occam's razor is that the obvious answer is the right answer, or the simplest answer is usually the right answer. And it's about how much time you put into things. And this is to agree with both of you. It's Jacob Manu, no debate. Hands down, it's Jacob Manu. There is, you guys all put the points forward, and this defense would be nothing without Manu in the middle. They'd be fine, better than they were last year, but the increase in value that this defense made, and if you think of all the changes, this is repeating a little what you said, Justin, think of all the changes to, not structure, but putting square pegs into round holes that Jed Fish and Johnny Nansen did with that defense. There was a constant. And that was the first thing you said about Manu. So,
Yep.
so it's Manu without any question or debate.
Most improved players. This is both offense and defense. Let's start off with defensive side of the ball. I'm going to put Gunnar Maldonado on that list. Gunnar, I mean, and this is a tough one, and Lev, I'm sure you have some second, third, or maybe even a fourth place finisher on this. But on the defensive side of the ball, to me, Gunnar Maldonado has been the most improved because when you look at the start of the season, I go back to the season opener against NEU when Gunnar just tried to lay the boom on a couple of guys and missed. He would make contact but wouldn't wrap them up, and then
That's
guys
not the
would
game
run.
where he got the suspension too, right?
It is.
Oh, he got the targeting.
Yeah,
in
the
NAU
targeting.
game? Okay.
So he was suspended for the first half of the Mississippi State game, I believe. So
Picked on a lot at Stanford too.
Yeah.
In coverage. Yep.
But ever since really that game against Stanford, Gunnar Maldonado has been quiet, which is a good thing. It seemed like Gunnar Maldonado, sometimes he was such a liability, it was so noticeable, and now he's been so impactful, you haven't really noticed it until the Territorial Cup game, when he got the forced fumble, the interception, and also led the team with 10 tackles. So to me, Gunnar Maldonado, most improved player. And, I got to give it up to him. People like Arizona fans on social media, a lot of people were very, very critical of Gunnar Maldonado. And they questioned Chuck Cecil, like, why is this guy playing? Don't you have other safeties that you could play? And they've stuck with this guy, and he's developed, and he's gotten so much better. So I'm going Gunnar.
Yeah, I am going to break from what I said I was going to do and just completely agree with you on Gunnar. And I don't have another choice because his improvement has been remarkable.
Not even Dalton Johnson.
If you look, the problem with Dalton as a most improved player, he only played 5 defensive snaps last year. Like, he just didn't play enough. So he might be more of a breakout player for us on the defensive side. So Gunnar's PFF grade last year was 50.9. This year, 71.9. Okay.
Wow.
Missed tackles last year, he had 15 missed tackles, and his missed tackle percentage was 24%, which means basically like 1 out of every 4 tackle attempts, he's missing the tackle, right? This year, he has a missed tackle percentage of a mere 8.1% with only 6 missed tackles. So he's gone from 24.2% to 8.1%. I mean, that says it all. That says it all right there. And he also is, 2 forced turnovers in the last game of the season, just steadily got better and better and better. I've joked about him being the in-season most improved player, but if you compare to last year, his body of work this year, he's that guy.
So this is where I admit that I am the one of the three of us that does not have a PFF subscription. Me and
Well, I don't. I just use Lev's.
okay. Well, I was gonna say me and Brendan Carroll for solidarity, no PFF subscription. Didn't Brendan Carroll earlier this year talk about
Yep.
not
What
buying
is PFF?
What is PFF?
I have no idea.
It's a
So I'm going to go with the eye
fantastic
test
website.
here. So I'm going to go with the eye test. We're recording this on. Am I allowed to say what day we're recording this?
Sure.
We're recording this on Thursday. We got a. I am nothing if not shameless. So great story in the Daily Star today about the U of A men's basketball team from Bruce Pascoe, who pretty much everything he does is amazing. Headline on it: we got some dogs. Talking about UA defense. This guy is a dog in my eye, in the way that that's being talked about with basketball, but in football terms. And what's funny is the base level stats for the person I'm going to say did not change that much year over year. But my answer is Traydon Stukes. I think this is somebody Justin and I got to see up close at Pac-12 Media Day, and personality-wise, calm and kind of quiet and didn't really know what to say. Even watching him in press conferences grow up this season. And the way that he was utilized at various positions and placements. And, he had 1 pick last year. He had 1 this year. He had 48 total tackles this year. He had 42 last year. 3.5 for loss last year, 4 this year. Like, his numbers aren't that different, but his presence was very clearly aligned with what Jed Fish said at Pac-12 Media Day about why he brought Traydon Stukes to Pac-12 Media Day, is that he just, other than a Manu and some of these guys, he was a leader out there. And so to me, it's the eye test on that standpoint, is that there was never a point with him out on the field at any point where I thought they're going to get burned because it's trading Stukes.
Yep.
And they put him in the nickel package. They had him out wide. They had him all over the place. And he was a stalwart for that defense. So again, numbers aren't everything in my eyes. So I'm gonna give my most improved on defense.
I will give you one stat on Trey Stukes. His PFF grade last year was 51.1, and this year it's 78.8. So you're onto something. Good call.
PFF.
Without even reading PFF. What's PFF?
All right, how about most improved offensive player? I'm going to roll with Jonah Coleman. He went from a guy who was a second-string running back. I mean, he still was a second-string running back this year, but he really benefited from Michael Wiley going down and missing some games because he stepped up to that RB1 role and just kind of took it and ran with it. I mean, he's going to be such a good running back. I probably would imagine he's going to be up for the Doak Walker Award semifinal or preseason watch list going into next year. He's going to be considered one of the top running backs in college football. But the thing that impresses me the most, and Lev, I don't have PFF up right now, but you could probably look up his yards per carry after contact.
5.20.
You want that period out of any one of your running backs, but he's doing this after contact. So guys are making contact, he's making a miss, and he's putting up those kind of numbers. He's a bowling ball. He is a menace. He is so hard to bring down. And to me, he is the most improved player.
I mean, I agree. Jonah would be my choice. And my honorable mention, my second choice here is going to be Wendell Moe.
Shout out.
The starting left guard. And the biggest reason for me, not necessarily like the consistency of his play, undoubtedly a factor in all of that. But I look at snap counts for the season. He had the third most snaps played on offense of any player behind Jonah Sava-Inea and Josh Baker. And when you first saw Wendell Moe arrive on campus, you would have never thought he could play that many snaps.
Yeah.
Like, he was out of shape.
He was.
He was not football ready. And he worked and worked and developed to the point where he's one of the steadiest, most reliable players on the offense in just a year's time. So Jonah is my choice, but Wendell Moe is my runner-up.
There's part of me that wants to say, as crazy as this sounds, but this defeats the point of the eye test that I said about Stukes on defense. There's part of me that wants to say T-Mac.
T-Mac?
It's a good
But
call.
we knew it. It wasn't. The only reason T-Mac had the numbers he had last year is that you're a freshman joining a system for the first time. Everyone's kind of figuring everything out. New quarterback for the entire team, everything. And, oh, by the way, you also had Dorian Singer there. If it was T-Mac and Jacob Cowling last year, even as a freshman, T-Mac's going to hit 80 catches and 1,000 yards. Might not be as dynamic as he is right now, but so I'm going to shy away from that, even though that's sort of an honorable mention for me. Mine is statistically almost the same logic as Stukes. It's Tanner McLaughlin. I think that as a tight end and what he proved in his ability, you said it this week in one of your stories, that he's going to be looked at as a legitimate NFL possibility at tight end, and he looks the part. He was good last year, and his numbers aren't that much higher and that much better, but had his best game statistically as a Wildcat against ASU in his last regular season game, 7 catches, 2 touchdowns. I think the dynamic element of that to bring a really true third option beyond Cowing, whose yards per catch were way down because the way they were targeting him, beyond Cowing and beyond T-Mac, was a really important part of Noah Fafita's development to give him that outlet. And then simultaneously, his ability to be athletic. We've joked about his leaping and hurdling and all that stuff, but all of that, he's athletic. He can catch the ball. He's big. And if one of those guys went down, he'd probably have 20 more catches.
You saw the athleticism in that game against Arizona State. Both of his touchdowns required him kind of leaping from about the 3-yard line, to get across the goal line. And he did. He's an NFL player. I think he's going to test well. I think he's going to be one of those guys who goes in the 5th or 6th round, and then he has a 10 to 12 year NFL career. Mm-hmm. He might never be a star in the NFL, but he'll be on a roster for a long time.
Okay, moving on to top newcomer. So for top newcomer, should we do both sides of the ball? Because I felt like there's not really any top newcomer.
Is there a newcomer on offense that we could cite? Yeah.
But
well, what about Montana Lamonius Craig?
yeah.
It's tough on offense because they basically brought back the entire offense intact. I don't think
Polito.
You go for Polito?
I'll go Polito.
Sure. I mean, I'll say MLC. He didn't have huge production here in terms of receiving, but very valuable as a blocker.
Yeah.
Seems like really fit in well, you know, in a situation where, you know, if you had a huge ego and you came into that receiver room and you're like, hey, how come I'm not getting mine? Didn't get that sense.
Yeah.
At any point, you know? I think he fit in well from a cultural standpoint. And their wide receiver screen game has improved so much over the last couple of years, and it's because of guys like that who are willing to do the dirty work. So,
what about a defense? Top newcomer on defense.
A lot of choices here. Yeah,
I got Taylor Upshaw, the transfer from Michigan/Colorado, who is 4th in the Pac-12 in sacks. He's got 8.5 on the season. Great edge rusher for Arizona. Really brings a veteran presence. I mean, when we were talking about potential starters coming off the edge for this year at Arizona, I mean, we were talking about Tai Uiagalelei, maybe even Russell Deuce Davis, and they got some pretty good production out of those guys. But they were coming off the bench. They were rotated in, and they came in for a veteran player like a Taylor Upshaw who did a pretty good job of getting to the quarterback. So to me, Upshaw is your top newcomer on defense.
Yeah, I mean, the stats say it should be Upshaw for sure. But the guy who did the work behind the scenes, if you will,
Justin Flo.
No, Bill Norton.
He did the work in front of the scenes.
Bill Norton has been just like an invaluable, unquantifiable presence in the middle of that defense. You know, like occupying blockers, pushing the pocket, stuffing the run. Really important and underrated acquisition. And someone like, we didn't really know if he was going to be that good because he didn't play that much at Georgia. Was it a matter of this guy was an overrated recruit, or was it a matter of Georgia's defensive line is so good that even if you are good, you might not be able to play? And it turned out to be the latter. 4th highest graded defensive player per PFF. Good leader, big body, important presence in the middle of that defense. So Bill Norton's my guy.
Just say Martell Irby. Let's get over with. Anyways,
I didn't even think about Irby. Actually, that's a good pick.
Irby was maybe tracking that way, but he missed the last 3-4 games of the season, or last maybe 2.5 games of the season. So
no, I think even though there were some ups and downs in his playing time and stuff, I think you can make a case for a Justin Flo. I think even more than on the field, there's so much value in Arizona getting him into the mix, and you know, as a transfer from Oregon and a former 5-star and all what that means. But I think it's Norton only because I think it's Upshaw and Norton together. I think that solidification of the defensive line is so huge to the success of this team and to this defense. You know, as much as we talk about Manu and these other guys, this defense growing 100+ places in total defense allowed over a course of a single season. The one thing I'll say about Norton is, and I don't know if we've heard, you guys can correct me if I've supposedly read it in one of your stories. I'm sorry for not remembering. But we've talked about this with other sports at U of A. The one that pops into my head right now is Adia Barnes. Her biggest offseason recruit was bringing Helena Pueyo back for a final season.
Yeah.
I think you could make an argument that the biggest offseason recruit for the Arizona football team is Bill Norton. Get him back for one more year because they're going to lose Upshaw and they're going to have some evolution with that defense. And so to get him back and be even better than he was this year would be a massive coup going into 2024.
Yeah, he does have another year of eligibility, and you know, it's just a matter
and he could
of
play
what
himself
he wants
into
to
an
do.
NFL player if he plays one more year.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's not already. I mean, he's got the size and they might see him as that, but.
All right, so breakout players for both sides of the ball.
Yep.
I
so
think
this is like someone who really didn't play much
Yes.
last year, right?
Yeah. I think this is obvious.
Yep.
Offense.
Yep.
Noah Fafita
Yep.
set a school record for passing yards in a game against ASU, which is also a territorial cup record. He's quarterbacked Arizona to 6 straight wins to end the season, and heck, even the 2 losses when he first started, going up against Washington, a top 10 team at home, like that's not an easy start for Noah Fifita. And yes, he had some hiccups, but it looked very good in his first start. USC, the man went toe-to-toe with a Heisman Trophy winner in Caleb Williams and looked really good. Looked like the best passer on the field throughout most of the game. Remember, Caleb Williams had to use his legs in order for the Trojans to get back into the game. So, to me, Noah has been just so great ever since he's been inserted as QB1. And then defensive breakout player, I'll probably go with Ephesians Prysock. It's really to Takario Davis. You have a really good point.
Dalton Johnson,
really good. But I don't know. Ephesians Prysock was a guy who didn't really get a lot of playing time until the second half of last season when all those young players really started getting in. And then Ephesians Prysock has just molded into a bona fide ball hawk, long, lanky guy who can go up and make a play. So I'm going to put Prysock as my defensive breakout player.
So I'm on board with Fifita for sure. I'll give you some numbers here. I am not trying to throw Jaden DeLora under the bus, but just some stats for you, okay? Noah Fifita, 297 passing attempts. Jaden DeLora had 130. They both have 5 interceptions. So more than twice as many attempts, same number of picks. They also have the exact same number of turnover-worthy plays, according to PFF, at 8. With Noah having taken, 325 dropbacks versus Jaden's 146. So more than twice the number of dropbacks. So what does all that mean? Noah, he's been really good at protecting the ball. I hate that people look at the term game manager as some sort of negative. That's the job of a quarterback, right? Protect the ball, get it to where it's supposed to go, make good decisions. He has his internal wiring is just it's what you want
from an NFL quarterback.
From any quarterback. 23-5 touchdown to interception ratio. That's good stuff. He's the quarterback of the moment, the guy that they needed. For breakout player on defense, I think I'm going to go with Dalton Johnson on this one. Like I said, he barely played last year, and then by the end of this season, dude, we didn't know who the safeties were gonna be, and beginning of the year, we're like, this is maybe the worst position on the defense, blah blah blah. And Dalton Johnson has become a really good tackler. He's around the ball a lot. He kind of can play up at the line of scrimmage. He can play back if you need to. He's had some balls completed on him, but it's taken some great throws and great catches for those passes to be made. So I'm gonna pick Dalton for my breakout defensive player.
And his ability to blitz, get off tackles or get off blockers and make those tackles, like you said. I'm starting to regret my pick now.
You haven't written the story yet, Justin, so you can change your mind for print. We'll allow that.
Mine's Dalton Johnson as well. And again, it's all recency bias, but he's been good all year and very, very good the last few games. You mentioned his ability to blitz, 4 tackles for loss combined against Utah and ASU. Finally had a pick. Finally, there's probably 4 or 5 times. We talked about that. Who were we talking about that with?
Takario Davis.
With Davis. Yeah. Same thing. Dalton Johnson had kind of had it in his hands a couple of times earlier in the year and finally had a pick against ASU. On offense, I was going to make a joke, and I mean this as a good thing because I'm so happy that he got to play against ASU. I was going to make a joke and say Nazir Bambaataa is my breakout of the year for getting on the field and getting a Scully. But no, it's Fifita, and I think you could make an argument he's the Pac-12's breakout player of the year.
He will be the Pac-12 offensive freshman of the year, which that award, if you're a redshirt freshman, you are eligible for that. So that's how J.J. Taylor was able to win it in 2017. He was a redshirt freshman. Colin Schooler won the defensive freshman of the year that year. He was a true freshman. But that's a lock, guarantee. Noah's won that award 5 times. Over the course of the season, he'll be that guy when those awards come out Monday or Tuesday of next week.
All right, last batch of awards, guys.
Yeah.
Let's do top assistant coaches, both offensively and
I can
defensively.
name the top head coach.
So, so this award is pretty much my position group played the best. Give me the award. That's what this is.
Sort of.
But or you could just oversee an entire unit, entire side of the ball, and that's what gets you the award. And to me, I think this is maybe a unanimous choice. But Johnny Nansen on defense. Evolving defense or Arizona's defense from one of the worst units, especially stopping the run. You know, you look at the Wildcats defense last year giving up well over 200 yards per contest. And now Arizona is among the top rushing defenses in the Pac-12. And they just evolved from a terrible, terrible unit. Like that side of the ball just gave up way too many big plays. And now you look at, this year's team, and the defense has kind of bailed them out a lot of times. Like that game against Stanford, a big reason why Arizona was able to win that game is because of the defense. Against Mississippi State, Arizona's offense committed 5 turnovers in that game, and yet the Wildcats had a fighter's chance. That's because of how the defense was able to keep them in the games and keep teams out of the end zone. So Johnny Nansen, tip of the cap to that guy for the job that he's done as Arizona's defensive coordinator. And then for my top assistant coach on offense, I want to go with Brennan Carroll. I really do, because you look at the offensive line with Jordan Morgan staying healthy for 12 games, Wendell Moe, the job that he did as a guard, Leif Magnuson as well, stepping in for the injured Raymond Polito, and then, of course, Big Jonah Savinea making that move out to right tackle. But the evolution that T-Mac has taken as a wide receiver, Jacob Cowing.
Why we gotta go third all the time? No, kidding.
But Jacob Cowing led the Pac-12 in catches this year. You look at the top 2 receptions leaders in the Pac-12, guys. Number 1, Jacob Cowing. Number 2, Tetairoa McMillan. Kevin Cummings is your top offensive assistant coach.
Brett, you can go second.
I was going to say Kevin Cummings too, and I think just based on it wasn't like it was a simple transition from last year to this year. Oh, we got everybody back, everything's the same. You change quarterbacks midseason, so you've got to evolve that. As much as T-Mac has a relationship with Fafita, you've got to evolve how their cohesion exists in terms of the way the plays are called, the way the ball's thrown, the zip on the ball, all that stuff, and that's on the receivers to understand where Fafita is going to be putting the ball. And simultaneously, again, we talked about it earlier, you did not have the sort of third leg of that triumvirate from a year ago in Dorian Singer. And so where was that going to come from? And to see, to your point, Justin, both of their numbers be where they're at. Am I wrong? Didn't Cowing lead the Pac-12 in receptions last year too?
Yep.
I mean, I know we talk about yards being more important than receptions, but still.
Lincoln Victor of Washington State actually has more this year. He's at 89. Cowling second, 83, and T-Mac third at 80. Yeah. So they're second and third.
Pac-12's got to update their website. Because it
was a late game Saturday.
Are you sure?
I'm
okay.
Looking at CFB stats.
Okay. Because it says Lincoln Victor has 78 on the Pac-12 website as it stands.
So maybe he had 11 against Washington. And
I will check another source on that.
Okay.
While we're speaking. But go ahead, Brett.
So I say Cummings too for that reason. I think there's an argument to be made, even though, and this is not to knock him, even though we know that Jed is very connected to the quarterbacks. There's an argument to say Jimmy Doherty too in the evolution of Fafita once he got in and sort of being that passing game coordinator. But I think it's Cummings on the offensive side, and I think without question it's Johnny Nansen on the defense. And I think that that's where we've talked about head coaching situations and all that stuff, and could Fish be in line for a head coaching job? I think the bigger concern is who's going to come after Johnny Nansen. And so Fish's point about getting his assistants' pay up as soon as possible is a huge deal because of that. Because the question came in, can Nansen do this job this way? And yeah, he's done it.
I don't know what's wrong with the Pac-12 website, but on ESPN as well, Lincoln Victor has 89.
It's got 89?
So,
okay.
Yeah. Just so we're all up to speed on that. Yeah, I think Johnny Nansen has to be the assistant coach of the year on the defensive side of the ball. I still don't understand how he wasn't a finalist for the Broyles Award. Like, if you're actually paying attention to what's going on, I mean, no one's done a better job with their group than Johnny did. On offense, man, you could go in any number of directions. You could take Brendan Carroll, who has coached up that offensive line really well. Besides Jordan Morgan, I mean, there's a lot of pretty relatively inexperienced guys that they're playing.
Moving
Wendell
positions.
Moe, yeah.
I mean, even Big Jonah changing roles multiple times.
Yep. I mean, Wendell Moe played only 3 games, I think, last year.
Yep. Josh
Baker, he's a second-year starter, maybe third-year starter.
He did start
a little bit
in 2021. Yeah.
Not the full season.
No.
But Raymond Polito, true freshman. Jonas Avainaya, true sophomore. So a lot of youth there. Really good production from that group. Sacks were down. Running production was up. You could make a case for Kevin Cummings, as you guys discussed, in one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country, despite losing Dorian Singer. You could also make a case for Scotty Graham. I mean, look how good the running backs.
Man.
And they never fumble.
Yeah.
So haven't lost a fumble, I don't think, since Scotty's been their coach. And you talked about Jonah Coleman, being most improved player on offense. Michael Wiley had another outstanding season when he was healthy. So any number of guys there. I think Brendan Carroll would be my top choice, but I wouldn't argue if you went with Cummings or Scotty Graham.
All right.
Couple mailbag questions.
Mailbag questions.
And then
Pac-12
we'll make
picks,
a pick. Yeah.
And then we'll get out of here. Okay, so this one comes in from Steve Raider for life. Will the Cats be at full strength for our bowl game? Full strength, I don't think so. I would expect, and Jed Fish actually said he expects a couple guys to be out, whether it's for sitting out to get ready for the NFL draft or injury. Regarding the NFL draft, Arizona has a potential first-round pick in Jordan Morgan at left tackle. He could become the first Arizona offensive lineman selected in the first round since John Fina in 1992. And how about, if he's selected in the first round, how about that? Back-to-back years that Tucsonen gets picked in the first round. That's never happened before. That'd be a really cool deal. But Jordan Morgan is a name that could potentially sit out for the bowl game. Outside of that, I think Arizona will pretty much have everybody else available. Maybe an injury here or there. I know Martell Irby is recovering from an injury, but that's weeks away. I would expect Irby to probably be healthy by then.
Yeah, there's some injuries in the running back room.
DJ Williams
did not play in the Territorial Cup, and Jonah Coleman got hurt during the Territorial Cup, so that is a position that I would keep an eye on for sure. I wonder if they would maybe activate Brandon Johnson for this game.
Yeah.
Something they could do.
Freshman.
Preserve his red shirt. He has not played this year. Been on the scout team. Jordan Morgan, I saw a mock draft on The Athletic where he was the first pick in the second round to the Carolina Panthers. And funnily enough, ESPN did a NBA mock draft today, and Kylan Boswell they had as the first pick of the second round. So I think Kylan Boswell definitely could move his way into the first round. I also think Jordan Morgan could work his way into the first round. And even though he's kind of, been building up and hoping for this opportunity his whole career here, I don't think he has to play in that game. He doesn't have anything to prove. He has more to lose, than he has something to prove in that game. So, and the one thing I'll say, if you're kind of upset about this as an Arizona fan, is unless you're in the playoff, I don't think any team is quote unquote full strength for their bowl game, because there's guys who are going into the portal, there are opt-outs, there are injuries, all kinds of stuff happens for these teams that are in these bowl games at this time of year.
If you're a first-round pick, you're not playing in the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
But did you see that you can actually, the pop? Did you see this, Brett? The Pop-Tart mascot or whatever is going to be having an edible costume at the end of the game, so you can actually rip a chunk of the Pop-Tart off of the mascot and eat it at the end.
So there's actually someone wearing a suit.
They're going to wear a different suit at the end, I guess.
Okay.
They're not going to wear the edible one the entire time, because who really wants to have a cold Pop-Tart, right? They're much better when you heat them up. So you get that thing nice and warm, a little crispiness, and then, yeah. I got one from John Viator, who he gives us a lot of good questions. How significant is the development of the Sons of Servite recruits, and how influential is their player development at Arizona on recruitment this year and beyond? Is Arizona now being seen as one of the top player development schools in college football?
That word, develop. It's been often used since a particular player decommitted from
Isn't that
Arizona.
interesting? It seems like it comes up a lot in press conferences. Do you think people view Arizona that way now? Have they done enough to be like, hey, this is a spot I can go and they're going to develop me into like an NFL caliber player?
I don't think it matters.
No?
I think it's all tied to NIL.
Really? Okay.
I'm not saying that's why a certain player decommitted or two of them decommitted or whatever. I think we think that's part of it. But to me, I don't think that's the reason why guys are coming here or not.
But I mean, you also can look at, I mean, just a short amount of time, 3 years, look at what the players in that 2022 recruiting class have done. That's been a major storyline for this year's Arizona team, is that T-Mac has gotten significantly better from last year. Same with Jonah Coleman. Same with Jonah Savinea. Jacob Manu went from a scout team superhero to one of the best defensive players in the Pac-12.
Like I said it about Bill Norton, and the reality is that no matter what trashy internet Twitter accounts want to drum up overnight as rumors, we talked about it on your show today, Justin, that if anyone in the country has some NIL dollars laying around, they might come kicking T-Mac's tires. Of course, something like that might happen. There might be other players too. I think we have to be prepared that Arizona may lose a player. I mean, there's 90 guys on the roster. They might lose a guy or two that we don't think they're going to lose because, there's only so much to go around here and there's only so much to go around everywhere. And if somebody has something, I think it's imminent? No. And that's the denouncing of what we've seen on social media the last day or two. For anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about, I don't want to give it too much credence, but there's this argument that T-Mac's got tons of offers, and we don't know. Nobody knows, but at the same time, why also would he want to leave a great situation and the possibility of what he's going to get next year? The only reason would be if there's a ton of money on the table. And so I think beyond him, that's something we probably have to look at, not just from a recruiting standpoint of incoming freshmen, but the portal and the outgoing portal too. And it's going to be the reality. And I don't think anybody doesn't see the possibility of what next year could be, even those players. But I don't think we're done with the portal movement here. Probably not just on the incoming, but even the outgoing. I think that's just the reality, and that's not a bad thing. That's just how it goes.
All right, so I'm tying these two together. This one comes in from Ice Cream Paint Job. What's the most effective way for fans to support the program and keep this momentum between season tickets, Friends of Wilmer NIL organization, Fish's retention, etc.? Just feels like there's a lot of pots/financial goals, but no deliberate, methodical plan to collectively raise funds. And the other part to this is from AZ Wildcats. Does Jed need to make a statement that he is staying soon before early signing period so he can land his recruits and potentially others that may be interested? I don't think Jed Fish's job status with Arizona is hurting recruiting at the moment, and I don't think Jed needs to make a statement anytime soon, because I feel like Jed's going to stay here unless a NFL team comes swooping in. Because, I mean, you look at all the college jobs that are out there right now. Texas A&M already hired Mike Elko. Michigan State already hired Jonathan Smith. I mean, what other college programs out there are going to come in and steal Jed? Now, the NFL, there are going to be some jobs that open up down the road in the next several weeks. I look at, potentially look at the LA franchises. Sean McVay, coached with Jed Fish. Jed was on his staff just a few years ago. Sean McVay could go do TV somewhere and collect $1 million every single year and go work with Amazon.
Oh, it's way more than $1 million.
Is it more than $1 million?
Yeah. You know how much Tony Romo makes?
Is it like $1 million a game?
$18 million. Jeez. Yeah, so like $1 million a game. Yeah,
that's crazy.
So he's overpaid. But anyway, go ahead.
I don't know, Jim. But Sean McVay could step away from coaching, and Jed loves L.A. has spent time in LA. Has
We won't even
coached
talk
for
about the
Rams.
Chargers possibly having.
Well, no. I was getting there. But I'm talking like if the job,
You're about to see sad Justin in real life.
if both jobs opened up, if Jed were to lean towards one, I'm probably banking on him going towards the Rams more than the Chargers. But the Chargers job could open up. Brandon Staley, I think, is going to be gone after this year. The Patriots job could open up. Bill Belichick could step down or go take another job
and the
elsewhere.
Patriots are looking at having a top 5 pick in the draft,
Well,
and maybe getting a franchise caliber quarterback too.
I also,
Just
my
saying.
hunch is that Belichick and Kraft have a good enough relationship that even if it's time to move on and have him retire, that he's going to have some say in giving
Belichick?
in giving his point of view, even if he doesn't move into some senior executive position in the front office, he's going to have some say. And the reality is that, don't mean this meanly about guys who've been coaching a long time, but the retreads aren't going to be it. It's not going to be Bill O'Brien. It's not going to be Josh McDaniel. And so someone who's kind of a new face and voice, but still familiar, could very well be of interest. None of this is legitimately happening at this moment in the public eye that we know of. All of it could be happening behind the scenes, but I think that Jed waiting is not that problematic for him. By the way, tomorrow, as we're recording this, so Friday, his buyout drops by $1 million. So him signing a deal right now doesn't benefit him if there's other opportunities out there. So do I think he's leaving? No, I don't. I don't at all right now. To answer the question though, I think it's tickets. I think the visual perception of ticket sales, any ability to keep Jed Fish and to keep the assistants is going to come from large level external donors. Yes, NIL matters. And so donating to Friends of Wilbur and Wilma and all that is a big deal. But it's the perception of ticket sales, and to have Jed Fish doing what I was reading this yesterday, what Dana Altman did it with basketball last year. Tommy Lloyd's been doing it, talking about no one coming to their games. You know, that narrative can't keep happening if they want the perception of the program beyond just who's here to continue to increase. And the reality is that they're probably going to increase ticket sales if they've got, or ticket prices if they've got to pay Jed and these guys more. Although I think that may not be the smartest way to go about it, but that's a whole nother conversation.
So this one comes from an account called Noah Fafita Burner account, which is funny. It's at UAZFan14, and it's directed toward me, but you guys can chime in as well. Favorite Pac-10/12 memory on either the Arizona or SC beat, real bittersweet this weekend. I will cite 2 games that I covered, one on each beat. The first one, USC at Oregon State, 2008, Thursday night game. Beavers upset the number 1 team in the country. I was there with my colleague Adam Maya, and I was doing a game story, and Adam was going to do a sidebar. And about the third quarter, we called our editor and be like, we got to change this. This could be a major upset. So I ended up writing a column, and Adam ended up doing the game story. And I remember us having to traverse the storm fielding, the field storming at Reser Stadium just to get to the locker room. Like we were swimming upstream, to use sort of a Pacific Northwest type of term there. It was totally chaotic and wild and classic Pac-12 after dark, and that was the only game that USC team lost that whole year. They would have been a dangerous team if a college football playoff existed. That was an awesome defensive team and really good. They had Mark Sanchez at quarterback, among other weapons on that side of the ball. And then here on the Arizona beat, of course, the Khalil Tate breakout crazy game in October of 2017, rushing for, what was it, 300? How many yards was it?
327.
327. I mean, you just couldn't believe what you were seeing. Like, it was over and over and over again. He was just absolutely the best player on the field, the fastest. One explosive play after another. He was also 12 for 13 passing in that game, and the only incomplete pass was a drop. So those would be my 2 kind of fondest memories of the Pac-10/12.
Well, I'm kind of new to covering Pac-12 football, so
yeah, you can definitely go outside of football. Yeah.
Oh,
I like
basketball
this.
too?
Sure.
Oh man. I mean, if we're talking about like,
were you at
memorable?
that game when Arizona played UCLA in the Pac-12 championship game? The Ben Matherin team.
Yes,
That was an unbelievable.
they were down by 14
awesome
points.
Game, yeah.
They were down by 14 points. They came back and they won. And they were also without Kirk Risa, and I think Justin Kier got into foul trouble, so they had to move some things around. Dalen Terry ended up playing point guard for like 8 minutes of that game. So, yeah, I'll put that game up there. There's been a lot of really memorable basketball games, and I'll also never forget the whole FBI federal investigation into the program and the story that was released by ESPN in February right before the Oregon game. And then the following week, Sean Miller holds a press conference and says, I did not commit any NCAA violations, didn't do this, didn't do that. And then he comes out onto the court. It was Arizona's final set of home games. And the response that Sean Miller got walking out onto that floor, it was like a rock star had come in. You had a guy dressed up in a suit that had a big sign that said "Vindicated" on it. It was a memory that I will never forget. I mean, there have been so many. Like, I was in attendance for the Hail Mary game against Cal when Austin Hill brought in the walk-off touchdown at the end of the game. Like, there's been a lot of great games that I've been a part of. I'm kind of having a brain cramp right now trying to think about all of it. What about you, Brett?
I don't know if this counts as Pac-12 necessarily, but even though they lost the SC Texas Rose Bowl, that was the last national championship that wasn't a national championship game separated.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. That was the Rose Bowl. The next year was the first national title game that stood out on its own, and it was at the brand new stadium in Glendale for the Fiesta Bowl. Well, not the Fiesta Bowl, but it was the second game in Glendale that year.
Yeah.
I think I grew up a product. I read all these things. Greg Byrne in the paper today, Pac-12 Hotline. John
People
Warner.
should read that, by the way.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And grew up with the Pac-12. I did too, not nearly as connected as he was, but going to UCLA things in Southern California and being a UCLA football fan, which still to this day is much fewer and far between than USC. And I still remember the first ever BCS rankings that came out mid-season. UCLA was the number one team in the country. To talk about East Coast bias and where the Pac-12 stood at one point, it's really fascinating to watch the sort of, and this is what Greg Byrne talks about, the sort of little death by 1,000 paper cuts of the last 12 to 15 years, let alone the last 25 years. Back in, I think it was 98, right, was the start of the BCS. So this is not where I will rant, even though I will say it out loud that I am a BCS homer who thought the BCS was not the problem. It was the fact it was only two teams. That was the issue. The rankings are way better than putting 12 or 15 yahoos in a room and having them pick, but that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Man, now I'm thinking of a lot of other stuff. I will cite the Reggie Bush game against Fresno State. I believe that I was home in Chicago for the holidays when that was taking place. I think that game was like on Fox Sports West with Petros and Barry Tompkins. Does that sound right to you, Brett? That's kind of your wheelhouse.
It could have been. It might have been Steve Fiziak or one of those guys.
Yeah,
too.
no, I think it was Barry and Petros. And I mean, Reggie Bush to me is the best college football player I've ever seen. And that game was the pinnacle of everything that he was able to do in college. He was unstoppable, unbelievable. That the play where he's running to one side of the field and just comes to a complete stop, and everyone kind of goes flying by, and he cuts back across the field. Again, another kind of classic Pac-12 after dark in a different TV era than what we're accustomed to now. But that's another one that stands out to me.
Didn't the Pac-10, I don't know if it was Pac-10, Pac-12, didn't the Pac-10 sign a deal with Versus for a while? Am I remembering that right?
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Think of all the TV things that have evolved, the media rights conversations and stuff like that. That's even part of it. Is, this is a weird one. I want to say it was 2000, fall of 04, and maybe it was 03. It was John Makovic era. LSU at Arizona at the stadium here. The game was on TBS. TBS had a Saturday night game, and it was Ron Thulin on the call. And so I was working for the student paper. My best friend and roommate was the GM of the radio station. Justin's one of those guys that worked for all of them, and when he was in school, and so my buddy Ryan and he got us access to kind of meet the crew before the game and go into the truck, and we meet the on-air crew, and we meet the sideline reporter. It's Erin Andrews before she was ever famous. He was working for TBS doing Saturday night college football games in Tucson. Like, just kind of wild stuff. You think back to College Game Day being here, and what was that, 2009 with the Oregon game? The anniversary of that was like a week ago, where, you know, I think they were there. I think that Game Day was here because I think it was Chris Fowler not Fowler. It was Herb Street, and who would it have been? Musburger?
Oh, as the play-by-player?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably Brent.
Because it went from, I remember being in the Arizona Stadium.
Not Brad Nessler?
No, it was not. It was post. Oh my God, I'm going to sound so horrible. Like, I'm trying to pretend like I know what I'm talking about. What's his name? The most famous voice. And
Keith Jackson?
It was not Keith Jackson. That's what I was going to say. It was post Keith Jackson. But I remember being at a Arizona game and Keith Jackson standing next to him in line for cold cuts before the football game and thinking, like, this is a big deal. Like, these guys are here. And Keith Jackson was notoriously West Coast oriented the last decade of his career, other than the big games. But it's just, it's amazing. I'm not trying to make this a lamenting about the Pac-12, but it's amazing to see how, for such a competitive, interesting saga over 3-4 decades, not even going back to 78, it just kind of whittled to an end in the last 8 days.
All right.
On that note, you want to pick the Pac-12 championship game? All right.
Let's do it.
So I'll give you a little update here on the season standings. Brett is in first place against the spread at 42, 34-1. Had an amazing week, the final week. He went 5-1 against the spread, 6-0 straight up. He is also tied for first place in straight up at 61-16 with me. Justin is in second place against the spread, 41, 35-1, so just one game behind. I am 39, 37-1, bringing up the rear. Justin is 56-21 straight up. We are going to pick Pac-12 games all the way through the entirety of the postseason. Try to drag this out as long as we can because we do not want Pac-12 football to end. The game that we're going to pick this week, before we know the rest of the bowl game matchups, is, of course, Oregon against Washington. With if Washington wins, I think they're a shoo-in to make the college football playoff. If Oregon wins and some other things happen, who knows? Anyway, the game is in Las Vegas. It is on ABC, 6 p.m. Friday, and Oregon is favored by 9.5 points, despite being ranked lower than Washington, despite being ranked lower than Washington, despite Washington having beaten Oregon earlier in the season. I'm going to take Oregon to win this game. I do think that they are the better team and that they are playing better, but I think that's too many points. Washington has shown that they're very resilient toward the end of the season. They've been in a lot of close games. They know how to handle that. The play call by Kalen DeBoer and that 4th and 1 situation against Washington State was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, a lot of people give him credit for that while simultaneously criticizing Dan Lanning for making similar decisions because, DeBoer's play worked and Lanning's plays didn't. But that was very cool, very ballsy. And I just like I think that they can use that to their advantage. Washington can. So I'm going to take Oregon to win, but the Huskies to beat the spread.
Ever since Oregon lost to Washington, they have not lost a game, and all of their wins have been by more than a possession. Like, they're not just winning games, but they're winning pretty handily too. Oregon's one of the hottest teams in college football right now, but 9.5 points against an undefeated team on a neutral site game, man, that's a lot. I'm going with the Ducks to win, but Washington to cover. Brett, what about you? The Washington Huskies.
Yeah, let's do it. I thought about the fact you guys let me pick last, and that was not the smartest move because I could just go chalk and keep the lead going into the bowl games. But no, I think Washington has played worse than their ranking says they are, but I think they are a better team than they've played.
Okay.
And I honestly think this game's a push. I'm not Vegas, so I'm not going to spread it at 9.5. But we saw the game that was in Seattle, and yes, that took every ounce of Washington's gusto to win it in their home field. So you might say that that's advantage Oregon in this time, but I think it's going to be a great game, a great matchup. Whoever blinks first is probably going to be the one that loses. So I'll take Washington to win it. Let's go.
All right.
Yeah, we'll find out the rest of the bowl lineup on Sunday. And then we will convene at some point before all the bowl games start, and we'll have a pick'em. We'll have a pick'em show, and also answer some more mailbag questions. I know that a lot of people like that segment, and we like it too. So we'll put out the word. We'll send up the bat signal when that podcast is approaching, and we'll gather some more questions. And please feel free to fire away.
Yes, sir. And subscribe, rate, and comment the Wildcast podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And also download the Wildcaster app for free off the App Store and Google Play. And for everything Arizona Wildcats related, check us out on Tucson.com.